Max Verstappen and Red Bull won the third straight race of the season at Albert Park. Verstappen had a 12 seconds advantage over second-place Lewis Hamilton over the longest stint of the Grand Prix. The RB19 was only about 3/10 faster than the next closest car during the race, and that's only half the pace advantage they had on the opening two races. This raises the question on whether the Austrian outfit is showcasing their true potential on track. Everyone watching this video has probably heard of the term sandbagging. But for those of you who do not know, we'll explain about sandbagging in this video, and let's discuss about how Red Bull is utilizing this technique to safeguard its pace advantage over the rest of the field. Sandbagging is a strategy used by racing teams to purposefully make the car underperform, lowering fan expectations, in order to produce relatively greater than anticipated results during the season. If you can recall, Mercedes is a team well known to be utilizing this strategy within their 8 seasons of pure domination. The fastest team on track is always known to sandbag its real performance in Formula 1. Red Bull seems to be sandbagging a lot, and it seems to be for many reasons than just preserving its significant pace advantage. And Max Verstappen's race at Melbourne just goes on to show that they have more in the tank. Take a look at the overtake Verstappen made over Hamilton. Hamilton got passed by Verstappen on the back curvy straight from turn 8 to turn 9 with DRS active. Verstappen absolutely flew past Hamilton and off into the distance by the time both drivers were out of turn 10. After turn 10, Max was able to extend his lead by the aid of DRS because of the double detection point before turn 8, and by the time they got into the final sector, Verstappen was already a second and a half ahead of Hamilton. And by the time they got to the end of the lap, Verstappen was already 2 seconds ahead. It was pretty outrageous on how Max was able to make a 2-second lead over Hamilton within the final sector of the lap. When you take a look at the top speeds of each lap, Verstappen was able to top out the chart with a top speed of 341 km per hour. When you compare the speeds between Hamilton and Verstappen with the DRS open and closed, the difference is just night and day. Red Bull was 7 km per hour faster than the Mercedes without DRS. Red Bull was 14 km per hour faster than Mercedes with both cars having DRS open. And the Red Bull was almost 36 km per hour faster than the Mercedes when the Red Bull had DRS open. It's not only the straight line speed advantage the RB19 has, as the car is also able to replicate the same performance in the corners as well. Despite having such a pace advantage, Verstappen was only about 3/10 faster than the closest racing car of Lewis Hamilton. George Russell felt that the Red Bull camp is hiding more performance under the RB19 to preserve their advantage of the rest of the field, and he expects the advantage Red Bull has over the rest is about 7/10 of a second per lap. For sure they're holding back, Russell told the Checkered Flag podcast. I think they are almost embarrassed to show their full potential because the faster they seem, the more that the sport is going to try and hold them back somehow. I think realistically they probably have 7/10 advantage over the rest of the field. I don't know what the pace difference looks like at the moment, but Max has got no reason to be pushing it, nor has Red Bull. They've done a really great job, to be fair to them. We can't take that away, and we clearly have to up our game. It was about 40 seconds of a gap Verstappen had over Alonso at the finish of the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was apparent that Red Bull were taking the race easy as well as they turned down their engine in Bahrain because they were managing some issues. Actually, the RB19 will be a lot faster in certain tracks like Baku, where they're going to be monstrous. But even in tracks like Albert Park where the other teams were closer, they were still the faster car, probably by a big chunk. George Russell reckons that Red Bull have at least 7/10 of a second of pace advantage, at least in race pace. Maybe the Austrian team does not want to show all the advantage they have in their pocket. Russell even said that they, meaning Red Bull, are almost embarrassed to show their true potential. I personally don't think that Red Bull will be embarrassed to show their true pace. What Russell might be trying to say is that there's going to be apprehensive to a certain degree. Because if it's clear that the RB19 is way faster than their competitors and they're beating them by a minute every single Grand Prix, Formula 1 officials will step in at some point. It's happened in the past in the form of regulation changes, and especially nowadays with the push towards entertainment, as we saw with the red flags at the Australian Grand Prix. If a team absolutely dominates the sport, the governing body for sure will be concerned, and the sport will try and hold them back somehow. Therefore, change the regulations in some way or another to hurt Red Bull, and try and help the other teams catch up will be the only resort. Red Bull seems to be doing this after being inspired by its main rival for almost 8 years. Former Mercedes technical director Paddy Lowe has revealed that the championship-winning team was forced to hide its significant engine advantage in 2014, the first year of the hybrid power unit in F1. In qualifying, we would never turn the engine up for Q1 and Q2. It was run in a sort of idle mode. The debate would then be how much to turn the engine up for Q3. I'd be getting it in the ear from Toto, "That's too much, that's too much." And I'm thinking, but if we don't get pole, we'll look like a right bunch of mugs. So what number to pick that would do the job, and knowing you didn't want to go on the wrong way. So that was a big part of the discussion on Saturday afternoon. Nice chat to have. Actually, that went on quite a long time. Through most of 2014, that engine was never on full power for qualifying. Obviously the W5 was great already, but in addition to that advantage, they were choosing how much to sandbag because they wanted to play the politics game. Mercedes played it quite well to try and prevent any rule changes to stop them. Their actual advantage was so great that if they'd have shown it every race weekend, someone would have probably stepped in and made changes to the rules to try and make the sport a little bit fairer. For instance, they could have even chosen to revert to the old V8 engines potentially. Mercedes played this quite well, and Red Bull for sure are learning from history. The RB19 is clearly far better than the competition, but they won't want to be showing the full potential every weekend. And they don't have to, because if they're confident of getting the race win. The superior pace is evident as Max went off the road locking up his front tires. He went off into the grass and lost about 4 seconds, which he was able to recover within 2-3 laps. It's quite clear that Russell has a point. I think the ulterior motive in this game to showcase Red Bull's true pace to the FIA and maybe start a push here from to try and get the regulations tweaked in some way or another to slow Red Bull down. Mercedes will try their best, and they have big upgrades to come as Hamilton says that they got a gap, but it's not impossible to close that gap. Even Mike Crack said from Aston Martin that the team's got improvements to make and they've got new parts for Baku, Imola and Montreal. So we'll see how much so well that closes a gap potentially to Red Bull. When asked Helmut Marko about rivals closing the gap to Red Bull, Marko said, "You can see how close it is when a little thing doesn't work out because we're always said to have a superiority that only exists when everything is running smoothly. Our rivals Aston Martin, Ferrari and Mercedes have made gains. Red Bull have a big upgrades arriving in Baku, which is apparently worth about 3 full tenths of a second. If that's the case, they're going to be a second faster than everyone else on the track. Whether they show that pace advantage on track is up to them. Because if they do, then a lot of questions will start to be raised behind the scenes. This is one side for Red Bull hiding their true pace. But could there be another reason as well? From Bahrain itself, the RB19 has had its reliability questioned, as the gearbox and driveshaft have been facing a lot of issues. A driveshaft failure did even ruin Verstappen's qualifying session at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And on the next race itself, the team is running on a preserved pace. It seems though the team is running on a controlled pace to bring the cars home safely every race. But what do you guys think? Are Red Bull really sandbagging? If yes, why would they be doing it? Could Red Bull be hiding their pace till they find a reliability fix? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.